the more you're willing to put yourselves out there and try the language of friendship out. Be vulnerable, take initiative. The faster you do that, the more you'll make friends. But you have to know that it takes actually doing it wrong to do it right. Yeah. Hey, it's Lizzy, and I have a confession. For most of my life, I've been terrible at building friendships. I'm not talking about being friendly or nice. I've got that covered. But creating real, deep connections, building a network of people who truly support and inspire me. Let's just say I was always waiting for someone to invite me, for someone to make me feel like we were friends. I felt like I was always on the outside looking in. And here's the kicker. I thought it was just me. But guess what? It's not just me, and it's not just you either. Studies show that more than 80% of Americans feel lonely or left out. That is most of us. Most of us feel like we don't belong, like we're somehow not part of the group. And here's another wild statistic. Nearly 30% of people say they don't even know one of their neighbors. So yeah, feeling disconnected is basically a national epidemic. But here's the good news. This can change. Enter my friend Julia. She's a real-life expert in building connections, someone who doesn't just talk about relationships, but lives them. Julia has taught me, by example, how to build a network of incredible women right here in my community. She's shown me that creating meaningful connections isn't about waiting for someone to invite you into their circle. It's about realizing that you are your own circle. You choose who's in it, you create it. In today's episode, Julia Nixon is sharing her top tips for building relationships, friendships, and networks. These are tips anyone can use, whether you're the person who lights up every room you walk into or the one who feels awkward and unsure of where to start. And let's be honest, we've all felt left out at some point. But this conversation will show you how to take control of your relationships and build the connections you've been longing for. Because here's the truth. You are not outside the circle. You are your circle. You have the power and you are responsible to make your circle what you want it to be. You choose who's in, who gets your time, and who you want to be a part of your life. Taking ownership of your circle has the power to change you. Are you ready for this? Grab a notebook, settle in, and get ready for a conversation that will inspire you to create relationships that make your life richer, fuller, and more joyful. Julia, thank you so much for coming and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, we know each other super well. Real life, we're next door neighbors. We're really good friends. I like to think you're a best friend of mine. Yeah. I also know a lot of women feel that way about you, and that just speaks to the power of who you are and what you do and how good you are at it. So today we're going to have a really open conversation. Julia knows this is not a strength of mine. And so I have called her like the yin to my yang, because I feel like she has complemented so many things that I do in ways that I haven't known how to do in myself. I'm honestly not good at them myself, but I begged her to come on the podcast months ago and she finally relented. And I just said, just teach us your tips and tricks. So I know this hasn't always come, you say it hasn't always come natural to you, and that you also had to kind of learn this yourself. Tell us what it was like maybe in the beginning when you realized, I want to be good at this. I want to build a network.
So I feel like growing up and in high school, I always had friends. And then I remember going off to college, which was truly, I lived in Provo and I went to BYU, but realizing I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't really love my freshman year, and everyone loves their freshman year, but I just didn't really know how to make friends. I didn't put myself out there and I didn't know how to. And so I kind of had to figure out what I wanted to do that next year. And at the end of my freshman year, realizing like, crap, I didn't even make a new friend I had a few friends, but no one that I was super excited to say they were going to be my lifelong friends. And it's more because I went home too much or all these little things. And so I think that was the first time in my life that I realized I needed to figure out how to make friends. But I think different things that you've said in your podcast about how women's lives change every, is it 3 to 5 years? Mm-hmm. I think making friends kind of changes with that. I think there's so many different phases of life where you have to figure out how to make friends again and again and again.
I love that you started it out and the first thing you said was you took so much ownership. It wasn't, I didn't have friends. No one wanted to be my friend. You realized your freshman year, you didn't know how to make friends. It was a skill. It wasn't like nobody liked me my freshman year. It's just like, I didn't know how to do this as like a science almost.
Yeah. I think it's a life skill. And it's like a muscle you have to work out and to get stronger and better at.
So good. And that's where I want to start this conversation. If you're coming to this and like, oh, that's just not what I'm good at. It's just not how friendships work.
Yeah.
You choose and you put them in your life and you make efforts. And you've taught me so much about that. You've also talked about then you went to Boston, you and Mike, for school and an experience out there. I don't know if it was one experience or similar realization in a new phase.
Yeah. Same thing. We, moved to Boston. My husband was, started school. I just had a second baby. We lived in this teeny, tiny little apartment. And I realized I was lonely and I didn't have any friends. And that was like this new phase. I just moved from Houston where I had this group of friends and, we were thriving. And so starting over again, I remember calling my mom in tears, just like, oh, I'm so lonely. I have no friends. I don't know what to do. And she just said, maybe it's not about you. Maybe there's a reason you're here and it's for someone else. And the first person that popped in my head was a lady that we lived close to, whose husband was in residency. And I thought maybe I could reach out to her and become her friend. So that was my first initiative of reaching out to someone. And she even texted me, I don't even truly remember her name anymore, but 10 years ago being like, thank you so much for being a friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so simple. And I had hung out with this group of girls that I really liked. I kind of knew a couple of them. I had reached out to one who's one of my best friends now, Ashley Schmutz, and I was like, I just moved to Boston. Can I be your friend? And she invited me into her circle, but I didn't know these girls very well, but it was my birthday and I just decided to text them and say, hey, it's my birthday. Would you want to come shopping and go to lunch with me? And I was like, they're probably thinking I'm crazy and who is this girl? But they all came and honestly, they're some of my best friends still. And they've said I remember you doing that. And it was so cool that you did that, even though I just was really just wanting friends.
So good. And I love how vulnerable that is. And something that I thought about when you were saying that is if 80% of us feel like we're outside the circle and are feeling lonely, if we even try, and even if it's awkward, chances are more than not it's going to land because the person you're reaching out to feels lonely too.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it won't. Sometimes people have friends, but only 20% actually feel like, no, I'm really settled in my friendships and I have all that I need. So most of the time, if you just make an effort, it's probably going to land with someone who needs it.
And I think sometimes it takes a few times to try. I think I talked to my sister today who I called her asking her, because I remember her telling me that she was a new mom and she had moved and she wanted friends. And so she went on this Mill Creek Facebook page and just said, hey, I'm going to be at the park at this time every week if anyone wants to come. And the first 2 times no one came. And I'm like, good for you for just putting yourself out there. And then she said the third time she posted it again and some girls came and now they're some of her best friends. So I think you kind of have to keep trying without feeling defeated or feel like you're a failure if the first time was a flop or the people you reached out to you don't connect with or something.
So good. And not taking it personally. If it's just trying over. I mean, again, there's a science to it.
Yeah.
Part of the science is try a few times. Yeah. Sometimes people need a couple invites to really dare to come out of their own comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about some of your tips. And I know you don't think about them in this way. I think when something comes natural to you, you're not here's my 5 steps for doing this. You actually have to think a little more because you're a lived expert, not someone who's gone and studied it and found the things that work. So thank you for taking the time to write these things out. And I love that we can go through them because for someone who's not good at this, they do need it written out as tips. I need to say, okay, actually teach me what to say. Give me a script because it's not second nature to me yet. So we're going to just go through these and maybe share some stories and talk about the application. But thank you for writing them out in this way.
Welcome.
For me personally, and hopefully, and I'm sure so many others listening.
So the first one we talked about is be an initiator and just reaching out, being the first one to, ask someone to hang out or get together or something. Another one that I thought was be vulnerable and willing to stretch yourself. I think that's really hard. And I think to have friendships and lifelong friendships and close friendships is you have to share. You have to open your heart. You have to talk. You have to share things, the hard things. And it's hard when you're asking someone like, hey, how are you doing? It's like, good. Instead of like, I remember moving to Utah, and so after Boston, we moved around a bunch, but we were in Utah, and I had met one of my best friends now, Emily Deans, and we like met at the pool. We like looked at each other, and we were both like these tall, giant ladies with blonde hair. And I had heard about her, and anyway, we started becoming friends. And I invited her to come over and swim at my mom's house or something. And I remember like telling her my whole life story and leaving like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I can't believe I just like told her everything about me. I don't even know this person, but I think it creates friendships. I think it creates openness with people. So I think being vulnerable is very important.
I have some people that I've known for a really long time that will never divulge anything about themselves.
Yeah.
Like, and I will, and then they don't reciprocate and never say anything back.
Friends.
And it's tricky because I'm like, I don't actually know if they like me or trust me if they're not willing to share something.
Yeah.
And finding that balance of like what's not enough, what's too much, takes trial and error, and
It
fine.
does. It really does.
If it doesn't hit with someone,
that's okay. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And it may take a couple of times. I think being newer in friendships, I would often do the same like vomit of just like, here's everything about me. I'm struggling. Like, someone asked me a question. I'm finally out with friends. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, oh
clearly
gosh.
I need to do this more. But that's okay. And for some of those friends, like you talked about with Emily, it worked and it didn't even matter. And for those that didn't mesh with the things you shared with, there's billions of people on the earth. You'll find your people.
Totally.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I still don't think it's a bad thing to share, even if they think you're crazy. Walk away being like, yeah, I'm good.
Yep. Agree. So be vulnerable.
Yeah,
share
be vulnerable. Things. Be open. Open up your heart.
Yes.
And also, I think being willing to just try and be willing to reach out and share, because I think people need that.
I was thinking about when you said that the fastest way to learn a language is total immersion. And the people who are least afraid to make mistakes learn a language fastest.
Interesting.
And I think that's the same with friendships. Like, the more you're willing to put yourselves out there and try the language of friendship out, be vulnerable, take initiative. The faster you do that, the more you'll make friends. But you have to know that it takes actually doing it wrong to do it right. Yeah. And some of those reps are just the price you pay.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And I've even said nerdy things like, oh my gosh, I'm looking for friends. Can we be friends? Like, what's your schedule like? What are we, how can we like connect? And I think people are kind of like, oh yeah, let's do it. But actually really doing it.
And those phrases right there, again, I think this is so second nature to you. The phrase, what's your schedule like? Or like, I need friends, being vulnerable, but what's your schedule like? What do you like to do? How can we connect? I think was also brilliant. Like, what are ways that you would like to connect?
Yeah.
What are things that are fun for you? And again, some people you might say, I need friends, would like friends, and be like, oh, I'm in a different phase. The faster you know that, also the better. Like, I've been in friendships where I feel like I kept hoping we would be friends. And after a while, I just realized like, they just don't need friendship right now, or we don't click. That's fine.
Yeah. Different phases of life.
But better for me to know that sooner than keep trying for months with someone that is just like, it's just not a fit. Or maybe they're too busy with problems in their own life to invest in someone else right now.
Yeah.
Good to know sooner if I'm in a phase where I'm looking for new friends in my life.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Another tip I have is adopt an abundant mindset. Friendships, I was saying friendships are not a limited resource. Celebrate your friends, connect with others, and seek opportunities to be a connector.
So good. How have you seen that show up in your life?
Another thing when I moved to Utah that I did in the search of friendship is, I don't know if you've heard of Power Moms. It was like from the I-Rings, I think, and you paid $30 a year and you would get these different articles each month. And it's kind of like a book club, but for parenting, which I love because I feel like everyone needs help parenting. And so I kind of just started throwing the invite to anyone. I just like, come to this, anyone's invited, invite a friend, do this, do that. And initiating a place to do these. And I met so many people and so many friendships, and some I still have and some I don't see as much anymore. But in that phase of life where you have little kids and you're like desperate for friendships, and we could get together at night because our husbands were home. And it was so fun. And I learned so much about parenting and learned about other people, and people opened their hearts, and it was really cool. But then it kind of fizzled out. Again, different phase of life where it's like your kids are getting super busy and you don't have time at night to hang out with friends or go to dinner or whatever. And so that one, it fizzled out after a couple of years, but it was so awesome.
I actually, when we moved here, I think you did your last one. So I went to the very tail end of those.
Oh, that's funny.
And I remember thinking, what a great way to meet people.
Yeah.
I just was so impressed, but also it was such a gift to me when I first came. And you were so great as well. I remember this. And we didn't know each other very well. Our husbands knew each other.
Yeah.
And I think Dave knew you maybe in college, but you made me, when I showed up, I felt like, oh, she's so happy I'm here. She's so happy I came. And like, you do that to everyone. Just yesterday, you had something at your house and I went up to someone else that I had never met and we were chatting and she's like, isn't it amazing that like Julia actually makes you feel like she's happy you're there to everyone? I was like, I know, it's amazing. But it's authentic and real. Like you actually are so happy for everybody who shows up and who comes. And so you set the stage and you created the atmosphere and it was something where we were all learning. And then you personally welcomed me and I was like, wait, what? She's happy I'm here. I feel so loved.
Oh, thank you. Some people just aren't gatherers and some people feel uncomfortable hosting, but when you show up for someone else who is doing that, I think it's like, it means a lot to them because you are putting yourself out there and that's okay. I have friends who have said to me like, you should start Power of Moms again. That was so great. And I've been like, you should like host it, but like they never would, but they come to everything I invite them to, or they show up and they appreciate it and they tell me that they're grateful for it, which feels good and is super nice. But so even if you're not the person who feels comfortable gathering or hosting, but showing up for other people, I think that's a big deal too.
Huge. So huge. It doesn't feel good when people don't come.
Yeah.
And knowing that it can mean just as much showing up for other people as doing your own thing, I think is really empowering for someone who's scared to do that thing.
Yeah, because that's something I feel comfortable with. I grew up that way. My mom was that way. Doesn't mean everyone is. And that's okay. There's so many different ways to have friendships. So good. I mean, there's little things like going on a walk with someone, texting them, all these individual things that I think are really important and meaningful.
I've thought about that, just taking ownership for your circle. We have a friend, Brooke Romney, who posted something just yesterday that 80% of people feel like they're outside the circle, not in, which is also data I've seen in other places, like lots of national statistics that we feel outside. And I had this thought, what's really changed for me in this last year, which we both turned 40. Our birthdays are a week apart, which is so fun. And I decided to throw my own party, which actually I have done 3 years in a row now, but very different versions of it. This last year was a big retreat. And I had this realization that friendship and feeling outside the circle means it's not my circle. So I've automatically said, I'm a victim in friendship. It's someone else's circle and I'm in or out of it. Instead of realizing like, it's my circle. I am my own circle. I decide who's in and out. And for some friends, our Venn diagram of our two circles that overlap is really strong. And we have lots of friends in the middle. For other friends, it's only us. I know her. She knows me. We're friends for one season or reason. And we don't really even know a lot of the other people that are the same. But having that realization last year that it's my circle, that I'm in control, that I also am responsible. I don't show up to church saying, who's going to make me feel welcome today? I just don't. And the days when I'm off and I show up and I'm expecting someone to talk to me, it just doesn't get better. Rarely. Maybe someone comes up and says something that but
I could go somewhere like that and not talk to one person. It's like I'm wrestling my kids or I'm, rushing to the next place or whatever. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even really talk to anyone.
Totally.
Bad.
So if we're responsible for our own circles, that is in a way so empowering. To say, if I feel out, that's because I've put myself out of my own circle of responsibility and I've taken the power away from me and said someone else has to fill that. No, I can do it. It's me. But then also realizing, like you were talking about, bringing this back to what you said, is what then fills my cup. Is it a one-on-one friendship? Is it small groups? Is it big groups? And it's okay if your style is just the one-on-ones and you have a couple close friends. You don't have to do it. Like, I don't have to compare myself to Julia and say, because you're so good at big gatherings, that has to be my jam.
Yeah.
I might do that a few times. And then whatever is good for me, it's my circle.
Yeah. And I think too, it's some, again, like we were saying, it's a muscle that you use, but it's like thinking about how are ways I can connect with someone. Like, okay, I'm already going to go on a walk, and so let me invite someone. Or I am going to go take my kids to the park, so I'm going to throw the invite out to other people. Or things that you're already doing. I think it's like, that's when you are thinking about like, oh, let me just throw out the invite to other people. Because even if they can't come, it always feels good to be invited.
I don't know if this is one of your tips, but I thought about this when I was thinking about you on here. Just bringing someone with you. You are so good at, and is the last thing on my mind in my day. And that is like something I want to put up on my car mirror, like wherever I'm going, or my car windshield. Like if I'm going somewhere, who could come?
Yeah.
And I mean, we work out together now because you've done this very thing, right?
But I want to hang out with you and I want to see you, and our lives are so different. And so it's like working out is perfect. It's like early, it's not in the way, and we get to like connect once a week or a couple times a week, hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's the best.
Yep. It is. Just because you thought, okay, I want to do this anyway. Who can I bring? And that's a really easy way, I think, for people who have a hard time with this to say, I don't know if I can create an event, but I can think about the things I want to do. If it's a habit or the workout or eating healthy or a salad club, what are the things that are already going to fill my life? Who can I bring along?
Yeah. And like another idea, sometimes it doesn't happen a ton, but once in a while, if I make extra dinner, I can think like, oh, I'll just go drop it off at someone's house. Or instead of like one thing of bread, I'll double it. And then you can just drop it off at someone's house or reach out to someone else. And it's like, those are such easy ways to connect with people, and you're already doing it. So it's not
so smart.
You're not recreating it, which is helpful in our stage of life of just being super busy.
Totally. And I think everyone feels busy at all their phases, right?
Yeah.
I remember feeling just as busy as a college student, just as busy, actually busier as a new mom, I think, because I was just stressed keeping babies alive at first, you know? And so we all are in those stages. What's something you're already doing? Double that.
Yeah.
Bring a friend.
Well, and it's funny because I actually think being a middle-aged woman, which is weird to say because I don't feel middle-aged. We're not middle-aged. But like, it's harder to make friends in these phases of life than it is even as a young new mom who's like has these kids, and you plan a play date and you can hang out with people, where our lives are so busy and we're running kids around and doing things. And it's like, if you're not in my carpool or my kid's not having a play date with you, like I really won't see you unless I make an effort. And it's an interesting phase to move into. Or I've had a sister-in-law who moved when her kids were older, and it was hard for her to make friends. Or I watch my mom who's, in her mid-60s trying to find new friends. And I think it's like she had friends, her friends were her kids' friends. And then, for different circumstances or whatever, she's like trying to find friends again as this. And I'm like, oh, this is tricky. It's hard.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. We think about it when we're younger, I think, more.
I do too.
And I don't think as we age, we think about the fact that taking initiative, being vulnerable, all these tips you've still taught, you might have to start fresh.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, no, I'll have all these people I bring with me. But I had someone tell me once, or maybe it was even on social media or something, isn't it a cool thought to think that some of your best friends you haven't even met yet?
I love that.
I was like, wait a second, that's true. In my 50s and 60s and 70s, I hope I keep meeting people that were these hidden gems that I didn't even know were coming into my life.
I love that.
Think about my 30s, like meeting you and moving to Utah and didn't, not seeing that coming. And it has made my life so rich, and I'll hopefully still have you as part of my life in those other phases. But great reminder, don't feel weird if you're in your 60s listening to this, or even in your 70s saying, why am I starting over?
Yeah.
You're not unique. That's probably actually typical.
Yeah, I think it is. I really do. Which is another tip of like creating a framework. And sometimes it's easier to start or organize something that's monthly or weekly, like a book club. Or I always am thinking like, how would I make, I use my mom as an example because she actually really is in this. She's trying to create new friendships right now. And I'm like, how would I do that if like when I'm her age, or what when she's in this phase of life. And I've thought would probably join a club. I would maybe go find, she's right now with these women that they call them the quilting club. And she actually doesn't even like to quilt, but she's like, I like the women and I think they're great. And so I'm going to go and show up. And I've thought, I joined a tennis team a couple of years ago and I thought, man, if I moved, this is what I would find, a pickleball club or a tennis club, because it's something I enjoy. And I've met all these new women that are amazing and so fun and I would never go in the same circle as them because they're 10 years older than me or 10 years younger than me. And so I think finding something that feels natural to you, but you could create a framework for, sometimes doesn't feel as overwhelming.
If the first step is the hardest, like thinking of an event, if you only have to do that one time and then you repeat it, it's so much easier than coming up with new ideas every time.
Totally.
Like you said, like your lunches or Power of Moms, like if I can just set a pattern and a format and then be consistent in that, I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So I love this tip. I think it's so smart. And I also just have to say, because I'm sure Connie will listen to this because I know how much she loves you. I think it's often the people you wouldn't expect. Because Connie 100%. Is so connected. We love you, Connie, so much. She's so connected and she's puts herself out there. And you would never
think that she was like struggling to create new friendships because
she has people around her all the time and she's beautiful and extraordinary. But that's also a good reminder, like don't count someone out as you're reaching out and trying to make new friendships because they look like they have it all together or they look like they're surrounded by people. 100%. I think it's easy to think, well, not that girl. Mm-hmm. She's so with it. Yeah. She's so cute.
She has a million friends. She doesn't need new friends. She doesn't care about me or want to be my friend.
If Connie can be in a stage of finding new friends, then anyone can be in a stage of finding new friends.
Yes.
Okay, so format or organization, think about something monthly, weekly. I love this tip.
And it can be so easy. Like it doesn't have to be, I'm creating a big spread of food for someone. It's like, we're going to the park on Tuesdays after, at noon. Whose kids are that little and want to come to the park? Or bring takeout and sit on my floor. I mean, just depending on what stage of life we're in, book clubs or
I have a friend who did the salad clubs where they all like do a salad for each other. And then one day, every 6 weeks they'd go deliver the salads. Or she had another friend and they would go juice celery and something else, I don't know, for health on Mondays. And they just knew we both want to be drinking celery juice. So let's juice it together on Mondays. And Mondays are our juicing days.
Yeah. I love that. And when I know you've had Tana Fox on here, she taught us about kefir and I'd text a couple friends like, we should try making kefir. Of course I can make kefir by myself, but like, it's way more fun to do it with someone else. And if I'm going to do it anyway, that's like a great,
so good
time to invite someone over.
So smart and so easy to apply right now.
Yeah.
If you've never done it before, go pick one of those things and try it out.
Yeah. And like another, I just was thinking when I was younger and my husband worked all the time, my friend and I would make dinner together and we would like have our kids, oh, your husband's out of town, my husband's out of town. Let's like eat like chicken nuggets and get a salad to hang out till bedtime because it's just way more fun.
I wish I would have done that in my early mom years. Such a good
really
idea.
Does. It makes the afternoons go by faster and I don't know.
Those are the hardest hours when you have young kids. Those are the hardest
hours.
And for them too. If they have a buddy over and they're playing, they're way happier in the witching hours. You for sure will keep your sanity better.
Yeah. In Boston, that was like my saving grace. I would drive up to my friend Jamie Cook's house and we would eat dinner together and hang out because our husbands both worked super late and it saved me.
So good. So good. Do you have any more tips for us today?
I think the other one that I love is just don't take it personally. I think we get caught up on getting our feelings hurt. I know I've had to work through that a lot of just feeling left out or FOMO. And I think we see so much on Instagram or on social media now. Yeah. And I think we can start feeling very lonely by watching that or seeing that and feeling on the outside. One of the things Brooke Romney, she talked at something about building friendships and she said just a couple funny things, but she was like, I saw all these girls, they went skiing for the day and my feelings were totally hurt that I didn't go. And then she's like, then I remembered I don't ski. And she's like, oh shoot, you're right. Okay. They didn't invite me because I don't ski. Or, her other friends put a tea party on for their daughters. And then she's like feeling bad because she sees how cute it is. And then she remembers like, I don't have girls. So like, I didn't get invited. And sometimes it's just as simple as that. Like the stages of your life or your kids connect or you're doing something together and you see them and you're like, oh, let's go do this. And you don't purposely leave someone out. So I think finding a way to not take it personally is huge.
It's so beautiful. And it's hard in practice because everyone wants to feel liked and belong, but it's such good advice. It also made me think about the fact that if anytime I'm feeling jealous or I'm feeling left out or envious of something, it's such a good messenger to me of what I really want in my life. Mm-hmm. And if those things are triggering you often, that when you see people together, you feel worse about yourself, maybe the message is, I have room for friendships in my life that isn't filled yet.
Yeah.
And if I'm in control and say I do ski or I do have daughters in these examples, and that triggered something that would be fun for me, then why don't I do it too?
Yeah. I start it and say, hey, I want to do it. Or just say, hey, I want to come next time. That looked so much fun. Or start it yourself and invite anyone you want to. I feel like I've gotten great ideas from other people, seeing other people's ideas. Like, oh, I want to do a dance party. I'm going to start my own dance party or whatever it is. I don't know.
But if you waste time being jealous of it, then you can never accept the idea of something good for your life. Yeah. So instead of saying that, just that's a messenger that looks like that would be really fun for me. The fact that there was so much emotion when I saw that they did a girls' trip means that maybe I would really like doing a girls' trip. Should I think about a girls' trip? Who would be, because chances are you wouldn't even invite the same circle. 100%. You might invite two of them and maybe that's why it was painful for you.
Yeah.
But what if you had your optimal girls' trip, which might just mean you go away for one day and stay at someone's house? I'm like, maybe you don't have the money to say I can do a week away or I can fly. But if something about that called to me, what was it and what can I do about it? Because this is my circle. And now let me invite my 5 friends who fill me the most
and uplift me
the best and uplift me.
And I do think surrounding yourself, I tell this to my kids, but I think even as an adult, like surround yourself by the people you want to be like, because people can pull you down or pull you up. And I've been in groups of friends where it's really catty or they talk, there's a lot of gossip going on. And I leave feeling like, I don't like how I feel. And it's like, I love those girls, but I'm just going to take a little bit of a step away and maybe cultivate some different friendships. And I think that's okay.
I also have been in situations where we're not even talking about anything negative, but they're just in things that I have no interest in. But I kind of felt like, well, those were the girls that like everyone wants to be friends with. And so I should want to. And I'm like, we just don't have common interests.
Yeah.
So why don't I take a hard look at what I actually like to talk about and do and go do that thing, find those people to surround myself with and invite in, and it's trial and error. And some of them may say no, and that's fine. It might not be their season. But again, being very self-aware and sometimes almost stepping outside of yourself and looking in with no judgment and just saying, what do you really want?
Yeah.
What do you really need? What would really make you happy? What actually makes you sad, even though it pulls to you every time?
Yes.
And then go do that thing. You have the power to do that thing.
Yeah. And I think like maybe in this stage of my life right now, I don't feel the need as having as many friends, but the friends I do have, and the time I do want to spend, I really do want to leave feeling uplifted or taking a nugget away of something I can do for my kids or for my husband or for my life. And so I think, that can be important too.
And I think the older you get, the more you know yourself. Some people are young and know themselves really well.
Yeah.
The more you realize you hone in on that so quickly. Like, this doesn't serve me. This does serve me. And I felt the same as I've aged. Like, oh no, I don't have to try to like something I don't. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. These are the things I love. And I have limited time.
Yeah.
But I think we always did.
Yeah.
I think we just needed different things.
Yeah, I do too.
And so I think it's good, even if you're in college and listening to this, to say like, your time is still just as precious, even if you don't have kids and a husband and all the things, even a job.
Yes.
Who do you want to become and how do you want to feel? And I have actually at different times made made friendship a matter of prayer. And at times said, I don't have people who talk about these certain things that I want to. And some of them were spiritual. Like, I want more friends who like Jesus.
Yeah.
And who want to talk about Jesus with me.
I agree.
And I don't have anyone. And there were a few friends at that moment when I was praying for it. And those months that came into my life that have become really dear friends to me, So be intentional about it.
Yeah,
Ask God for help or write things down, like do actual work to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it can be like, it's crazy because you think, okay, I'm going to teach these skills to my teenagers or my kids, but it's like, we really do need it for our whole lives. It's crazy.
I loved seeing your beautiful daughter, Kate, yesterday. And I told her, I was like, your mom's coming on the podcast tomorrow. And her reaction was so beautiful and pure and exactly pure, meaning authentic. Her gut reaction was, I am so excited. And the reason she was excited is because I see other women who don't have friends and I know that they would be so much happier if they learn these skills. And it was like, she sees the joy that comes from friendship from you and you model it because you live it and it's who you are. And I loved that her heart was like, I want other women to live that way because we know the sadness that comes from loneliness. We've all been there at some point. So I think we can all be empathetic for that 100%. Feeling.
Yeah.
And I want that for so many women. And I mean, just personally, I have to just say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Because you know the gift that it's given to me for my whole life to live next door to an expert in this who makes women feel loved because you show up and you do the work, not because they say they like you. And also thank you for coming on and being willing to share this with so many more women. You are a gift to so many, Julia, and it is a gift to call you friend.
Thank you.
Wow, wasn't this conversation with Julia incredible? If you're anything like me, you're already thinking about specific ways you can start building those meaningful connections. But don't just stop here. Let's turn this into action. First, share this episode with a friend. We all need this skill, and you never know who might be feeling left out or disconnected. Be the person who pulls them in. Second, take one action from this episode. Whether it's reaching out to someone, starting a conversation, or expanding your circle, just start. Small steps lead to big changes. And finally, join the conversation with me on Instagram at Lean In With Lizzy. I want to hear from you. What's one takeaway from this episode? How are you building your circle? Share your experiences, and I would love to connect. Here's what I need you to know. I believe in you. I believe in your power to create the life you want and the relationships you deserve. You can build friendships and networks, even if it feels hard or unfamiliar. You are never outside the circle because you are your circle, and the power to grow it is yours. Go do this. I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Until next week, lean into your life and watch it change the world.